I've been in this sector for 30 years. I found myself in the classroom for the first time in 1995, and I've actually grown through the ranks, teaching in nursery school, primary school, secondary school, and now trying to round it off with administration at Principal of Princeton College. So I think over the years it's been fun and it's been actually beneficial to me specifically and my family. It's a profession I've really enjoyed. Yes, I think we've recorded a lot of progress because education is not just about the society within; it's a global thing. So as the world progresses, you have no alternative. You grow at the same time. So education now has actually grown and expanded. As it is, you can school anywhere in the world from Nigeria. So that's growth. Okay. The level of education and the access has actually increased. Okay, access has increased, irrespective of the fact that we still have challenges of access in Nigeria, but it has improved. More children are in school now than before. The figures have shown that, although we still have a very high number out of school. But technological advancement has also supported the growth in education. Okay, like I said, you can school from anywhere now, and you teach better now than before. Learning has become real. You can show the learners anything from anywhere. So when you're talking about whatever has happened in the US with aid of technology, you can show them how it is. Real life, real whatever as it is. So you don't have to do a lot of abstract teaching like before. You make it so real so the learners can relate directly with concepts and phenomena you're trying to explain. So education has come a long way. Well, like I said, we're growing, but we're not there yet. Okay, one of the major challenges we face in this part of the world is unequal access to education. That is number one, and that factor is mediated by a lot of other factors, socioeconomic factors. Things like poverty, ignorance, lack of access, or cost of education. Also, qualitative education is actually very expensive. Or let me say, quality education is very expensive, really, really expensive. Okay, but education is one such service that people render irrespective of how small it is, and is accepted because it's better than nothing. So that unequal access is a major problem. Okay, you notice that what the children in this school have access to, what they are exposed to, the level of knowledge, or maybe the content or the pattern, the teaching, the facilities available, you find out that there are other schools in other parts of the state, let me not even say the country, that don't have half of it. And so that unequal access, then we still have over 10 million children out of school in the country, meaning that they don't have access to school. If we talk to these people, they are one reason or the other. Ignorance is also part of it. So that major problem of unequal access is occasioned by a lot of things. When you have poor funding, it leads to unequal access. If you have corruption, it leads to unequal access. Poverty, unemployment. If you don't have a well-paid job, you can't afford education because of the cost of education, which is another factor on its own. So you could see that they're interconnected. So it leads to unequal access, poor access, dropouts, and all of that. So if you start taking them one after another, you find out that they all lead to the same problem. Then you have the problem of poor remuneration for teachers. Everybody knows that education as a sector is the most neglected. If you ask me, it's the most neglected sector. I don't know if it's the same in other places, but I think it is in Nigeria and probably in Africa. So you find out that even in admission in the universities, if you cannot secure admission in engineering, they'll say go to education. If you cannot secure admission to study law, they say go and read education. If you cannot secure to study, they say go and read education. So it's like education has become where you don't send the best, but the leftovers. So, and it impacts the quality of the output. Because when you don't give your best brains to this sector, they'll give you half-baked. So the JAMB result just came out. That's one of the outputs. That's one of the things. The JAMB result just came out, and you know, we have a lot of complaints everywhere. You can't give what you don't have. Students can only deliver what they learn from teachers, and teachers can only give what they have, what they know. So by the time we put our best in medicine, in engineering, in law, in other sectors, and we put the ones that could not meet up in this in education, that's what we're going to have. So the output has always been what it is, okay? Until we look at education as our number one, because actually it's the mother of all sectors. And these people who you think should go to education upon admission, eventually will still come back, grow through the ranks, go into the higher institutions, and start teaching the doctors and the lawyers, the engineers, and they cannot teach beyond what they know. So you can see that until we pay attention to education, until we lift it from where it is as a sector and make it number one, it has to be number one. If it's not number one, then our human resources development will not come up from the pit where it is. Child abuse, to me, it's any action, okay, that causes harm, intended or unintended, okay, that causes harm to a child. It could be physical harm, it could be emotional harm, it could be even be physical or social, emotional, because even when you carry out some social isolation of some things I consider social bullying in quote, it leads to emotional breakdown. So emotional harm or social harm, any action at all, you know, or words, whatever it is, whether intended or unintended. Yeah. And I say unintended because a lot of people don't even know that some of the actions they take amount to child abuse. And so and that's where one of the problems of understanding child abuse is ignorance, you know. So that's why I define child abuse. Okay, I think as a topic, it has actually gained more traction in terms of discussion and attention. It has actually improved, okay, as a concept, as a topic, meaning more people talk about it now than before, okay? And if you say child abuse as a concept or a factor has been on the increase, personally, I might not think so, but I think that what has been on the increase is the reporting, the information about it. And when you have more information on something, you have more data on it. The data will actually increase. The number will grow because you have more reporting now, okay? Information explosion, digital media has actually helped in reporting abuse, and also has also increased people knowledge and awareness of what abuse is, because you can easily take a video of something and report and post without even knowing that it's an abuse. Look at what this woman is doing to this girl, and you share it. You have created information for people to work. And sometimes you find out that government swings into action because someone shared a video somewhere. The person may not even know that he or she is reporting, but that is also unintended reporting. That's part of reportage. So the reporting of abuse has improved. So that makes it look like abuse itself has increased. I think it's on decline, if you ask me. But we have more information on it because there are so many things that happened in the past and they were not reported. And because they were not reported, they were not documented, they were not recorded. So you can access data on them. And now that you have data of how many people that were involved in domestic violence or child abuse in this place and this, so now it looks like it's rampant. Okay, that's happening. But it's actually on decline in the real sense of it. And so if you look at it with other control variables, you know that it's actually on the decline. We'll look at it from different angles, holistically. From the angle of the authorities, the government, we have more agencies now than before. Okay, now you have the Child Protection and Safeguarding Agency in Lagos State. So, and you have, you even have child abuse units, whatever, whether it's child abuse, domestic violence, whatever, everything put together in the police force. They were not there before. So this increase in information has actually helped the authorities, had prompted the authority to start creating offices and agencies and put people in charge. And those people in charge, they have to work. So because they have to work, they are bringing cases of abuse to limelight. Then you have, like I said, technology, digital media has helped. Access to digital media, a lot of people have access to digital media these days, and when they see what they don't like, they report, despite the level of ignorance. Okay, level of ignorance, and even that has also improved. Okay, a lot of people are now aware that there is kind of zero tolerance in Lagos State, for instance, for abuse, for any kind of abuse. Zero tolerance. So, and anybody can report it. And once it's up there in the cloud, it can go anywhere. So because a lot of people are aware, they try to, soft pedal because they understand another. So these are the factors that have helped the decline of child abuse. I want to believe that these institutions have their roles to play in the life of every child. The family has its distinct role to play. And like you said, charity begins at home. Now, if we look at it from the one that has failed the child the most, if you look at it from that angle, you have to start from the family. If you say when you're growing up, you heard that charity begins at home. Charity still begins at home, even today. So it's still the same thing. It starts from the home. Yeah. And that's why you see here statements like, this boy doesn't have home training, this girl doesn't have home training. Nobody says society training or community training. You say home training, and you don't have home training. So it still begins at home. Okay. And if you find out that neglect as a concept in child abuse is mostly found at home. That's what we call neglect. It's an element of child abuse. And sometimes these things happen without people even knowing. For instance, you see some children come to school looking so unkempt. The uniform is torn, dirty. Monday morning, you're looking so tattered, as though there's no other. Some people don't know that this is abuse. It's child abuse. It's neglect. Now, when you neglect the child, so if the child is the child that we can see is this appearance. Only God knows what's going on in the mind of that child. We don't know what this appearance what he has gone through to come out like this. Some of them, you see them on Monday morning, they say, the way I'm looking at you, you didn't take your bath. I've seen this thing in many schools. You didn't take your bath. And the child will be looking at you. What happened? I woke up late, for instance. What if your mom, what if your dad, nobody at home and all of that? And the child will tell you nobody is at home. This is unintended abuse. You're looking for money. You leave the house 5 a.m., you come back 11 p.m. You don't know what the child is doing. That's child abuse. So people think until you inflict harm, you slap and all that is neglect. And neglect forms the basis for every other type of abuse. Because when you as family member, the father, the mother, you are not there, this child has access to other people, probably on the street, on the internet, or wherever. If you don't tell the children, your child or your children, not what to do and what not to do, others will tell them what to do. So it stems from that neglect. Again, but they may fall into the hands of abusers online or physically, maybe on the street, within the same compound, because you're not there. So this is coming from neglect. So charity still begins at home. It's not all about presents, but it's also about presence. You buy the children this, you buy them the most expensive phone, you give them all the money in this world, you give them the life, take them to wherever you want to take them. It's also about sitting down with them and let them feel you, let them feel your presence. Your presence is like an umbrella, and that umbrella, it's an object of protection. And they feel safe when you are there. And when they feel unsafe and vulnerable when you are not there, they look for protection elsewhere. And some of these protections lead to abuse, seek counsel. So charity still begins at home. The home fails the child most. You were saying something about presence. Whether if you are present and you don't have the right values to pass across to the child. Well, your presence has, first of all, reduced the chances of abuse to a certain level. So being present is one thing. Having the right values to inculcate is another thing. But I don't really think that any parent has zero value. It can be completely zero, because at least even if you didn't learn, your mother or your father must have taught you something. Your parents must have learned something. We call it informal learning through observation. Nobody probably would teach you anything in the family. When we were growing up, our father probably didn't sit us down to tell us anything, or maybe stories, all those things. But you learn through observation. Okay, if your parents, maybe your father smokes in the house, the tendency that you're going to smoke is high. So you don't need to tell the child smoke or don't smoke. He observes you smoking, and in my place we have a proverb that he who does what the father does has not done anything wrong. So if you do, so that's your presence and your words too, they imitate. So they imitate. If you don't have, if the parent or whoever doesn't have right values to inculcate, I know that the presence alone can do something. You must add something. Okay? Yeah. Or we also, as parents, need to be hungry for values. You need to be hungry for right values, because that angle is also key. You need to know what is right and what is wrong. For instance, in school here, sometimes some parents come here to express their frustration on their children, especially teenagers. So when they have teenagers and all of that, we have to sometimes explain to them to understand the concept or the psychology of adolescence. When they understand that some of these things these kids are doing, some of them are normal, some of them is just because of the phase, and this is what they need to do. This is where you need to draw the line. Make rules in your house. You are making rules. You're already inculcating values. Nobody leaves the house when I'm not around. So that when the person does it, you know that this person is breaking the rule. So if you want to do any sanction, In a punitive measure, you know that, yes, you broke a rule. Don't go out when I'm not in the house, okay? Don't go playing games, don't go doing this. Don't watch television during the week, watch on Saturdays and all of that. So when you create rules and all of that, so that hunger for knowledge and acquiring values to inculcate is also important. Once you operate under a regulatory body, your policies must go in line with that of regulatory body. Sometimes you only domesticate the policies of the regulatory body. So what the schools do, which Princeton has done, is to domesticate the safeguarding, the child protection and safeguarding policy of Lagos State. So you domesticate it in your school. So the Lagos State as a government didn't make these policies to keep it at Alausa. No. So they made it to distribute it to the agencies that are involved, agencies and institutions that are involved with children, and school is included. So what we have done is to domesticate that policy of Lagos State. So it's still the same policy of zero tolerance. So we can add, we can remove. Okay, and here it's contained in our staff handbook, it's contained in our student handbook, because abuse, when it has to do with student to student, may come in form of bullying. So there's zero tolerance to bullying. Okay, and in fact, the punishment is expulsion. Expulsion, and if we want to be lenient, okay, abuse or bullying comes at different levels. So it depends on how it will be, how it has impacted or affected the person. Okay, it might be suspension, it might be anything, but it's zero tolerance. It's not allowed. There's no justification for anybody, whether you're a student or a staff, to cause pain to another person, be it emotional or physical. It is not allowed. It is not allowed. So if and that extends to other types of abuse. As a school, in fact, we try to be as proactive as we can be to prevent abuse, because that's the best way. Because once abuse occurs, you can't reverse it. You cannot reverse it. Something like sexual abuse. How do you reverse? How? You cannot. So what we'll do is to ensure we're proactive enough to prevent, increase the awareness every now and then. Because as a school, our basic responsibility is knowledge sharing. We teach everybody what abuse is, how to identify abuse, how to know when you are being abused. We teach the children, we teach the staff how to identify a child that is being abused and what to do when an abuse is reported to you. A child may trust you to report something that happened to her or him at home, something he or she might not have even told the parents. So teachers get all those information, and because they get those training, they manage this information on how to listen, how to record, take note of what the child is saying, and promise the child that this is going to be handled and all of that. So that is if it happens outside the school. Within the school, we'll try to be as proactive as we can to avoid it through knowledge sharing, information dissemination, awareness. So if you, on your way here, you could see some signs on the wall. So that the things, zero tolerance for this, and that they are all written there. The things we do not allow. So first of all, create that awareness that is not allowed. Then we have programs. We talk on the assembly, the extension of this awareness. And every Friday, today is Friday, from 1 p.m. now, you see the counselor will project her program talking about things that relate to child safety and awareness of abuse, and things to do, things not to do. Sometimes we have boys talk, girls talk, okay, separately. In fact, the counselor, we also call her designated safeguarding lead. So you are a designated person to ensure that the children are safe. First, as a school, provide a safe environment. Okay, through all of these physical environment, try to make it very safe. You know, safety is not all about removing naked wires and cementing the floor and all of that. It's also about putting infrastructure in place, like I said, for monitoring. And also when you are building, for instance, you're building your restroom, you have to think safety first, from abuse, not just from slipping and falling, or maybe getting injured. Also, okay, is this place hidden? How hidden is this? Okay, if it is hidden, what do we do? Okay, we need to put a camera here and put a sign here. You are being monitored. So we have such signs. CCTV camera in operation. You know, signs deter people from, if you know you are being watched, so deter people from misbehaving or from getting into the eye. So these things are all we do. Yes. First, let me say I don't really think you have zero of anything. You can't have zero of poverty. You can't have zero of ignorance. You can't have zero, and that is why some people in academics fault the SDGs. It says zero hunger. It's not possible by 2030. It's not possible to have zero hunger. So that's questions that that goal, that sustainable development goal. Now yes, you can actually reduce something to barest minimum, okay? And like I said, preventive measures, awareness campaign like you are doing, and also spreading this campaign to rural areas. That is one of the major problems we have in our education. When I say unequal access, I find that the people in rural areas rarely have access to this information. And they rarely have access to quality education, quality information, strategic knowledge that helps curb things like this. So if you say that there are 10 million children out of school, for instance, check, majority of them are in rural areas. Okay, if you see schools that do not have enough facility to curb issues and cases that lead to abuse and all of that in rural areas, unreported cases of abuse, majority rural areas. So we just have to spread the campaign to these areas, these ungoverned spaces, and that is to drive the concept of inclusiveness. If we just concentrate in the urban area, let me digress a bit. A lot of agencies concentrate awareness in the urban areas. Okay? And personally, I believe that these problems are more in the rural areas. Okay? A lot of organizations concentrate their CSR in urban areas, for convenience, for security, in urban areas. Whereas the problem you are solving, let me give you an example. For instance, this is a big school in quote, if you ask me, comparatively, compared to so many schools in rural areas. It's a big school. Now, in the name of CSR, an organization comes to share something like sanitary pads to the children in big schools. These are things they can afford.
Absolutely.
But there are schools that cannot afford them. There are schools where you have children who cannot afford these things. So as a school, we do our own CSR to places we know that, in fact, sometimes we collect from our own people and say, let's support those in rural areas. Okay, we're having a scholarship exam 31st of this month, but we said this scholarship exam is only for those in public schools. So if you can afford the fees of this school, then that reduces the need for scholarship. It's not that the need is absolutely zero, but no, it has really, there are people who need it more. So I think this awareness should go more to rural areas, to the hinterlands. That will help us curtail abuse to minimum behavior. I want to say that every adult is a protector of a child. It is the responsibility of every adult, wherever you find yourself, to protect every child around you. Child protection is business of everybody. It's not just about the police, the school, the hospital, or the safeguarding agencies. Every adult, everywhere, every child around you is your responsibility. It's your responsibility. Whether you know the child or not, whether it's your family member or not, whether the child has done this or that, your first responsibility is to protect the child. And that is why the child is a child. It's to be protected. Okay? So that's why I look at the fight against child abuse. And for us to achieve this, I also, as an academic or someone who is in the education sector, I believe in knowledge. Knowledge is power. Ignorance kills. We need to continue to educate our people through awareness. Okay? And the mother of all problems we have in Africa is ignorance. And people think it's poverty. Poverty is actually a product of ignorance. So it's not poverty that gave birth to ignorance. Ignorance gave birth to poverty. And ignorance, bad governance is also a product of ignorance. Voting the wrong person in an election is a product of ignorance. If you understand things, how society works, you will think. Critical thinking is key. And when we educate our people enough, when we create awareness enough, using the language that people can understand and work with, we would have done so much to drag everybody into this fight against